Hey, this is Matthew Ricks, and today on the Music Business Newsletter, we have an email about should I quit my job and do music full time? Discussion that every artist has had internally or with their significant other or their bandmates, and so I think this is a good email. If you have a question on the music industry that you want answered, all you got to do is go to MatthewRicks.com. Click submit your question. Give me as many details as possible, which I appreciate with this email because this artist here gave me a lot of information so that not only we can help him, but also maybe help yourself if you're in this situation as well. I don't need you to become a member or join a Patreon that doesn't exist or buy a book that doesn't exist or hire me to be a private coach. None of that. Just go to MatthewRicks.com, click submit your question, and that is it. So let's dive into today's email. It says, hey, Matthew, I have a hard decision to make, and I'm writing because I've been wrestling with this big decision. And that decision is, should I quit my job to chase music full time? Short answer to this is no. I don't care where you're at. You shouldn't be quitting your job to chase music. Usually artists quit their jobs because they're not chasing it anymore. It's on their doorstep. He says, my band and I have been gigging around Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Shout out to the Brewers for about 13 years now. We play around 75 shows a year, mostly door splits at bars and small venues around the Midwest. Shout out to Chicago, the homeland. We've built a solid fan base, and right now we're sitting at just over 21,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. 75 shows a year and 21,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Over 21,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. That's pretty good. Like, those are, for a band in 2025, those are not numbers to just take lightly. Those are pretty solid numbers right there. I will give you that. He says, we're signed to a small indie label. Would love to know what the terms of that deal is. Did you have to pay them? Is it a 50-50 split? Did they put any money up? This day and age, I don't know why you would sign to an indie label if you're going to have to share 50% of the revenue for the music that you paid to create, pay for promotions, or if they're not doing any promotions, and you're just giving somebody 50% of your revenue and possibly publishing for them to run your music through TuneCore or DistroKid or whatever. He says, we've always believed that we could go all in. No day jobs, no distractions. We could finally take this thing to the next level and maybe even get signed to a major. But here's the problem, he puts, real life. All of us are in our 30s and 40s now. We all have wives, kids, mortgages, and credit card bills. Okay, let's split the difference. Let's say you're 38 years old. You're going to quit your job. One that is supporting the music, because if you guys are doing door splits at bars and clubs around the Midwest, you might be making a couple of $100 a night. That's probably paying for your gas. At 21,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, I would suspect you're probably 100,000 streams a month you're getting, if that number is accurate. 80 to 100,000 streams a month. So you're probably making a couple of $100, $500 a month in streaming, and you got wives and kids, mortgage and credit cards. Well, if you want to keep that wife, you can't bankrupt yourself. If you want to have that mortgage, you can't bankrupt yourself. And your credit card bills, you probably have, just speculating here, but it's probably band debt and probably personal, but you got band debt as well. The email goes on. My bandmates don't want to risk their family's livelihood on what they see as a gamble. They love the music and the band, but they don't see it as a realistic to drop everything and chase it full time. Had you been 22, 23, single, month to month on the verge of sleeping in your car because you're just like one of those type of artists, with those numbers, if those numbers are true, I'd say go for it. Like, give it a shot for 6 months. What do you have to lose? You know, the job at Starbucks or whatever. But your bandmates are realistic. If they're okay, this is a band of 4 guys. Let's go with 4 guys. And all of y'all are married and in your 30s and 40s with kids. And you're going to go play bars in Dubuque, Iowa for a door split, making a couple $100 a night. And you're going to call home and your wife is dealing with kids, probably has to work herself if she's not already right now, probably going to have to work on top of being the full-time mom for you to play for a door split. That's going to put a lot of pressure on your band members and then ultimately your band. And probably what would happen, because you're doing this, is you're going to probably lose some band members. Now, I don't know if you're the lead singer, if you're the drummer. I'm going to be honest with you. This has massive lead singer vibes. It sounds like you're the lead singer. I could be wrong, but this definitely is not like bass player vibes. You know, bass players are usually the guy who doesn't have any credit card debt. They're usually the responsible ones in any band. It's just the way it is. The email says, I get where they're coming from, but I also feel like I'm running out of time. I don't want to look back and wonder what could have happened if we had just gone all in. So my question is, how do you know when it's time to take that leap? I think you know when it's time. You know, like I talk on Instagram to like content creators and I talk to artists and all this stuff. And usually you don't have to wonder when it's that time, you know. I know a woman right now in Florida who does content stuff. And she was making so much money from making Instagram reels and TikTok reels and YouTube shorts. And she asked me, she was like, what do I do? And I said, you go into long form videos now. You got the audience, just do it. And so she started doing that. Her numbers were popping off. She had enough money coming in that she could quit her job, but she also realized at that moment, by her going and working as a secretary at an office, it was actually hurting her bottom line because she couldn't sit around and just create content and reply to videos all day because she already had enough money coming in. So for her to take that leap, if you will, she already had it happening when she got off of work. Like she was creating, when she got off of work at 5 o'clock, she'd go home and create content for a few hours and then release it the next day. So while she was working her job, she also had this other income coming in from her side hustle. And then she realized that, one, financially, she was making more from the side hustle than working as a secretary. And two, that job was actually getting in the way. It wasn't I have to cut off everything in my life. She actually took a step forward in life by quitting her job and taking the quote unquote leap. So how do you know when it's time to take the leap? By you actually are losing money. So right now as a band, if you were to sit there with your bandmates, have your bills out, all of this stuff and say, okay, if we could do another 75 shows a year, bring it up to 150, which is a lot of shows. Okay, that's a lot of shows for a small band on a major label. But how much money are we losing as a band and individually by not doing that extra 75 shows versus what I bring in from my job? Because what this sounds like is weekend warrior stuff, which is nothing wrong with that. But having this based on fear that you're running out of time, the clock is ticking, this is your last chance, all those lies that we tell ourselves to make really stupid decisions is not a great thing to do when you want to blow up your entire life. Because if your kids get kicked out of their home and your wife leaves you and the credit card company is suing you, but you think you're being true to your dream, that doesn't make sense. That's lead singer vibes. I do appreciate, I dropped out of high school at 16 to go work at Jive Records full time. I was taking a gamble that I was going to be able to do this for the rest of my life. Okay. I don't know if today, sitting at 44 years old, with 2 kids, mortgage, car payment, American Express bill, if I would deviate and just blow up my entire career working with labels, doing the Mattrix Minute, this stuff, to go pursue a new hobby, because I don't feel like that would actually be fair to my kids. The email goes on. Is there a way to transition from part-time to full-time music without risking everything you've built? Yeah. I mean, one of the things you could do is, one, get your Spotify stream numbers up to, get it up to 100,000. So that's more revenue coming in. If you've played club shows or bar shows and you're doing a door split, and let's say you've had a couple of 100 people show up to your show, which if you did, that is outstanding. I would go back and ask for an honorarium. I would go back to that club that you had 200-300 people at and say, we want, what if we did $1,000 this time? Is that going to take you full time? No, but it is that process of going forward. I'm not saying you couldn't go full time. You guys seem like you do have a lot of things going in the right direction. If I'm just doing 75 shows a year based off of 52 weeks, you guys are doing most of your shows on the weekends, most weekends. And that's what I would do, is I would just try to get my numbers up on Spotify. I would try to monetize yourself on YouTube or TikTok if you guys are doing that stuff. I would go back to those venues and look for an honorarium, look for a firm honorarium. The other thing is that if you're doing 75 shows a year in the Midwest, you're probably hitting the same markets 2-3 times a year. If your fan base isn't growing, people aren't going to be as excited to see you. If you play Green Bay, Wisconsin 4 times a year, that first time you guys come back, probably a lot of excitement. By the 4th time in 1 year, probably not as much excitement. So you would have to grow that circle where you guys are touring to. But by doing that, you also add more, wear and tear on your van or vehicle, however you guys are getting to these shows, more gas. The more you tour, you do have more money coming in, but you also have higher expenses as well. It's just like any business. When you start a business, you got expenses, but as you bring employees in, or you got to go get an office now, or your expenses keep growing with that. The email says, I'd love to hear your perspective on how to balance passion and practicality. He said, especially from someone who's been around long enough to see both sides. There was a thing, I think pre-TikTok, Instagram, when artists had to, because back in the day, the only way you made fans was go play all the time. You'd start in a city, you'd drive overnight to a city and play for 20 people, hoping that you impress those 20 people. And then next time you come back, you hope there's 30 or 40 people. The internet has made it where I think artists have gotten lazier, because you have artists who don't even play shows anymore. They've never done a show in their life. They spend all their time on the internet, creating content, promoting, which is fine. Everybody's got their lane. And that was the pre-internet era. And you saw so many bands lose everything. So many artists just lost everything in their lives. They come home, their wife's gone, the kids are gone. I know this isn't the sexiest thing to hear, but as long as your family and kids and your wives are all cool with you guys doing 75 shows a year, you guys are making some money. I hope you're making some money. Doing 75 shows a year, being gone from your family, 21,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. I think you guys should be proud of where you're at right now. Because if you guys quit your jobs and you have no safety net, this becomes a lot more serious. This becomes there's a lot more stress to produce. Not only for yourself, you got to prove something to yourself, but you got kids. I don't know how old your kids are, but I don't know how supportive your wives are. Are your wives cool with, we're going to blow up our lives and risk everything? Because the last thing you want to do is come home from playing Dubuque, Iowa, and your wife is gone, unfortunately. I've seen it happen a few times. I've also seen signed bands, guitar players. I've seen it happen with singers in bands. The band is doing this. And the wife is tired of him gone all the time and gives him the ultimatum. And he sticks with family over music, which is what you should do. And he quits the band. So my advice would be, don't quit your day job. Don't quit your jobs. Try to go back to those 75 shows a year. 75 shows is a lot of shows to do in 1 year for a band in 2025. Try to get a solid honorarium. Don't tell me if you're selling merchandise, what your merch numbers are, because that's going to take into effect here. But the only time you ever quit your job to do music is when you not taking that gig actually loses you money. Like you staying at your job loses you money. That's the only time. You don't quit your job with wives and kids and mortgages and credit card bills to go gamble. Because if you bankrupt yourself, it's going to be a really long time to climb out of that hole. But I think you guys are doing great. Like I don't think that you should be worried that you're not doing enough or that you're going to lose it or you're going to look back and regret this. I mean, you guys are doing more shows in a year than some bands doing in 10 years. So be proud of yourself. But thanks for the email. Good luck to the band. If you have a question on the music industry and you want my help, just go to MatthewRicks.com, click submit your question. Give me as many details as possible, and I will help you in your journey. And until next time, I will talk to you later.